Hello, this is Morgan Fletcher, and I'm going to be interviewing Mr. Austin for my interview with a teacher who works with English language learners. So, Mr. Austin, can you describe your occupation?
Yes, I am a pre-K teacher's aide. My school is a Title I school, and it's in a neighborhood that's mainly made up of Hispanics.
Okay. Can you describe your experience working with ELL students?
Sure. In my classroom, we have some students who come to us from a bilingual classroom, and they do not receive any outside help. They stay in our classroom, and throughout the entire day, for each of our classrooms, we sometimes have about 4 or 5 EL students.
Okay. How do your monolingual students, how are they similar to your bilingual students or your ELLs?
Well, I believe that the students are students. They have a lot in common. They're very similar, both the monolingual and the ELL students. They both have needs. They both need help. They're always seeking my attention. Overall, kids are kids, regardless of the languages that they speak. I notice that they often have similar needs.
Okay. In your classroom, do you notice any separation between your monolingual and ELL students? Like, for instance, do you notice, like, if the English language learners tend to stick with their own group, or do they like to interact with everybody?
Well, again, kids are kids. There's some instances they do separate. The EL students need a little bit more extra time, but then I see that those students kind of will help each other, trying to figure out, like, how do I ask this, or how do I proceed with that. But then when it becomes like regular classroom activities, then they mix together, they play together, they get along together. It's just, I think they feel more comfortable with the EL students asking someone, like, from their own group how to solve this instead of going outside of the group.
That makes sense. And how are your monolingual and bilingual students different?
I noticed that there's a separation in the students. For instance, they do interact with each other, or that the EL students typically stick together. But I notice sometimes the EL students need a little bit more time to answer questions. But I call this thinking time. This gives my students enough time to be able to translate into their own words, the English, before answering my questions.
Okay. And in what area of English have you noticed your ELLs have the most difficulty?
For the most part, I believe that they have the most difficulty is when something is immediate, that needs to get a point across. It might be they're sick, or they're angry, or they're upset, and they tend to, just like regular people, will fall back onto their native language to make sure they get that point across. If they're sick that needs immediate attention, then you don't have that extra time, because it's not second nature to get that point across. So those type of instances, it takes a little bit more time, before they really understand, that becomes second nature, whether it's whatever language they use.
What type of motivation is the most noticeable among your ELLs?
One of the motivations I have noticed is having other students around them who love to talk. I mean, everybody loves to talk. This helps them learn how to express themselves, how to pick up on those subtle cues of when you say certain words or phrases that go with it, the facial expressions. But then sometimes they even have to teach the other students with just the basic words of this is the proper word to use for this situation. And it goes for Spanish as well.
How familiar are you with the motivation and its role in second language learning?
I've kind of learned as I've gone, like in life, Over the years, I've learned more about how to help English language learners from my colleagues. You have to ask people who have been there, done that. Why try to reinvent the wheel when you can get that knowledge from, your coworkers? And you don't always know everything. I'm always striving to learn more, to research, try to better myself so I can better my students in their learning.
Okay. I think that concludes our interview. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.